Caleb Turner had lived most of his life far away from crowds, noise, or anything that demanded more words than he was comfortable giving. His ranch sat at the edge of the wide New Mexico plains, where the land stretched open like a giant hand. Far to the west lay the mountains, blue and soft, like distant smoke. To the east, his cattle grazed in tall grass that moved gently whenever a breeze passed through. And just a few miles south lay Apache land, a place he had learned to respect long before he ever spoke directly to anyone from the community. Most days followed the same quiet rhythm. Caleb rose before the sun reached the horizon. He would light a small lamp, pull on his worn boots, and step outside into the cool air, where the first light made everything look soft and new. He checked on the horses, brushed their coats, and whispered calm words to them, though no one but the horses ever heard him. They were the only creatures he felt completely at ease with. They did not expect long conversations or clever remarks. They simply listened. Caleb had become known by many names among the nearby settlers. The quiet one, the ranch boy, and sometimes the shy Turner kid, even though he was now in his late 20s. He never argued with any of these names. They were true enough. Talking never came naturally to him. When he tried too hard, his voice became tight, and his thoughts twisted in knots. People made him nervous. Their expectations made him even more nervous. Animals were simple. Land was simple. People were not. But living so close to the Apache families meant that even someone as quiet as Caleb could not avoid interaction forever. Years ago, his parents had taught him that respecting the tribe was not just the right thing to do, it was the only way to live in peace. The Apache had been here long before any ranchers arrived. Caleb grew up listening to his parents' conversations about working together, trading fairly, and keeping promises. After his parents passed away, those lessons became rooted in him even more deeply. He followed them because they made sense. They made life easier. Every few weeks, an Apache family would ride or walk past the edge of his land. They always greeted him politely, and he greeted them the same way. Short nods, small smiles, quiet words. Over time, they learned that Caleb never said more than necessary. They did not mind. Many of them believed that silence was not a weakness. Silence meant listening. Silence meant respect. In their eyes, Caleb was not strange. He was simply calm. The Apache families traded handmade blankets, pottery, dried fruit, and herbs in exchange for things they sometimes needed from the ranch. Extra tools, bundles of hay, or small pieces of metal that Caleb could shape in his workshop. Caleb never tried to bargain or take advantage. He always gave more than expected. Maybe it was because he remembered the times his family had struggled when he was young. Maybe it was because being generous helped him feel connected to others in a world where he did not know how to express himself with words. There was one memory that often returned to him during those trades. When he was a young boy, an Apache elder had once placed a hand on his shoulder during a summer visit and said softly, "You have a quiet spirit. Quiet spirits see things others miss." Caleb did not fully understand it then, but he never forgot it. Over the years, he had come to see his quiet nature, not as a burden, but as something natural. It was simply who he was. Still, even with that small sense of confidence, Caleb rarely let anyone close to him. He kept to his routines. After breakfast, he tended to the cattle, repaired fence lines, and carried water from the creek that wound behind his house. Sometimes he would sit under the shade of a tall cottonwood tree, where he could watch the clouds drift overhead without worrying about anything. Those were the moments when he felt the most peaceful. But the world around him was changing. More settlers arrived each year. Some were friendly, some were not. Some understood the importance of respecting Apache land. Others ignored it. Caleb often felt anxious about the growing tension he heard whispers about but never saw firsthand. He did not want trouble. He did not want anyone to feel unwelcome. He wished everyone could simply live gently, the way the land seemed to want. The Apache women and men who visited him sensed his sincerity. They knew he was not like the ranchers who carried loud tempers and quick judgments. Caleb worked with his hands, spoke with honesty, and never pretended to understand what he did not. Because of this, they trusted him more and more as the years passed. Among them were two sisters, Nalin and Dasana. They often delivered goods from their community when the group traveled north. Nalin was confident and observant. Dasana was reserved and soft-spoken. They noticed that Caleb listened carefully to every word they said, even when he answered only with a quiet, "Thank you," or "I understand." He placed great value on small things: the shape of footprints, the way the wind moved, the health of every animal in his care. His calmness made them feel safe around him. Sometimes the sisters would watch him handle a nervous horse or a restless calf. Caleb never rushed an animal. He approached slowly, breathed gently, and let the animal decide that he meant no harm. The sisters admired this quality deeply. They believed a person's spirit showed most clearly in how they treated the creatures who could not defend themselves with words. Caleb was unaware of how much attention he had gained. He continued living from sunrise to sunset in the same quiet way. He was not lonely, but sometimes he wondered what it would feel like to have someone beside him to share a cup of coffee in the early morning cold, or to laugh at something simple. The thought made him nervous and warm at the same time. Still, he never imagined taking steps toward companionship. His shyness was like a tall fence. He did not know how to climb over it. One late afternoon, after a long day of mending fences, Caleb sat on his porch, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The sky turned shades of orange and pink, and shadows stretched across the ground like soft blankets. He heard the distant sound of horses approaching but felt no alarm. It was a familiar sound. The Apache visited often. He stood as they came into view, 3 riders, 2 women walking beside them. As they came closer, he recognized Nalin and Dasana walking together. They carried baskets filled with goods, and Caleb assumed it was a simple trade visit. He could not have been more wrong. But at that moment, with the fading sunlight warming the land and the horses' slow steps breaking the silence, Caleb had no reason to expect that the next hour would change his life. He did not know that the 2 sisters had been discussing him for weeks within their community. He did not know that they had made a decision together, one that was rooted in tradition, hope, and trust. All he knew was that the sisters looked unusually serious as they approached. Their expressions were calm but heavy, as if the words they carried had weight. Caleb wiped his hands on his trousers out of habit. His heart beat a little faster. He was never good with unexpected conversations, especially ones involving emotions or big decisions. He had no idea what they were going to say, but he felt his shyness rising like a tide. The moment before they reached him felt long and still, like the quiet just before a storm. Not a harmful storm, but the kind that changes things. And even though he did not yet understand it, the path he had been walking alone for years was about to shift. The land around him stayed the same, the mountains, the plains, the quiet breeze. But the life ahead of him was preparing to take a turn he could never have predicted. Caleb stood quietly as the small group stopped a few steps from his porch. The evening light made everything appear softer, but the expressions on Nalin's and Dasana's faces were anything but casual. They both carried baskets filled with handmade items as usual, but today they seemed less focused on the trade goods and more focused on him. He offered them a polite smile, the kind he used whenever words felt too heavy. "Good to see you all," he said gently, hoping his voice did not shake. His shyness always seemed stronger when more than 2 people were watching him. The older man in the group returned a friendly nod. The riders dismounted and tied their horses loosely near the fence. The 2 sisters stepped forward together, holding their baskets as if they were carrying not just goods, but something meaningful inside them. Caleb Turner, Nalin began, her voice steady but warm. We have come to speak with you. Caleb's heart thumped. Important talks were not something he handled well. He swallowed softly, wishing he had even a moment to prepare. Of course, he replied, though his nerves were quick to rise. The group settled near the porch. The older man stood quietly to the side, offering support but not taking part in the conversation. Nalin and Dasana placed their baskets down, as if what they were about to discuss required both hands free. For a moment, the wind carried only the soft rustle of grass. Caleb waited, trying not to fidget. Nalin exchanged a glance with her sister, as if confirming something unspoken. Then she looked directly at Caleb with clear, thoughtful eyes. We have watched you for many seasons, she said, and we have seen your heart. Caleb blinked in surprise. Compliments always made him uncomfortable, and this one felt especially large. His cheeks warmed. I just try to do what is right, he murmured. We know, Dasana said softly. You are kind. You listen. You do not speak empty words. Her gentle tone made Caleb lower his gaze, unsure how to handle such praise. No one spoke of him this way. Most people barely noticed him, and he preferred it that way. But the sincerity in the sisters' voices made him feel seen in a way he hadn't expected. Nalin continued slowly, choosing each word carefully. Our community has suffered great loss. Many of our young men are gone. Our families are smaller now. Our future is uncertain. She paused, letting her words settle in the quiet air. Caleb listened, not fully understanding yet but sensing the seriousness. He nodded respectfully. I'm sorry for your troubles, he said softly because genuine sympathy was something he could offer even when he didn't know the right words. Dasana took a slow breath, her hands folding gently in front of her. We speak today for our people, she said. For our families. For the strength of our next generation. Caleb's confusion grew. His eyes drifted between the two sisters, trying to grasp their meaning. I'm listening, he said quietly. Nalin's voice grew deeper with emotion. We have come to ask you something important. Something that is part of our tradition. She stepped a little closer. We ask you to help our community by giving us a child. Time seemed to stop. Caleb's breath caught in his throat, and the words echoed in his mind as if they were spoken twice. A child? Him? He felt his face warm with shock. His hands froze at his sides, and for a moment he simply stared at the sisters, not sure if he had understood correctly. Nalin and Dasana watched him calmly, not embarrassed or secretive. Their expressions were full of respect, not expectation. Caleb finally managed to speak, though his voice came out thin and uneven. I don't understand, he murmured, feeling heat crawl up his neck. Why? Why me? Because your spirit is gentle, Dasana said, her tone soothing. Because you care for life. Because you bring peace, not trouble. Nalin nodded. In our community, when many families lose members, we seek strong spirits to help us grow again. This is our tradition, not something done without respect. Caleb felt the world tilt slightly, as if the porch beneath him had moved. He had never imagined anything like this. His shyness wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. His thoughts stumbled over each other. He tried to look away, then back again. But nothing made the moment easier. The older man standing nearby spoke for the first time, his voice calm and steady. It is not a request made lightly, he said. It is a deep honor among our people. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck nervously, his heart racing. I don't know what to say, he whispered. This is a very big thing. Nalin's expression softened. We understand this may be strange in your eyes. Your people have different ways, but we come to you with honesty And trust, Dasana added gently. We do not ask you for promises beyond this. We ask for your help so that our families can continue. Their tone held no pressure, no demand. Only hope. But to Caleb, the request felt overwhelming. He was a man who struggled to choose the right words in everyday conversation. Now he was being asked something that touched the deepest parts of life: family, legacy, community. He felt his hands tremble slightly. He hid them behind his back, hoping no one noticed. I have never thought about something like this, he confessed, voice shaky. I don't know if I'm the kind of person who should be involved in something so important. You are exactly that kind of person, Nalan said gently. That is why we came. Caleb bit his lip, unsure how to respond. His mind tangled itself into knots. How could he explain his feelings? Where would he even start? The group sensed his discomfort. The older man stepped forward slightly. You do not need to answer today, he said kindly. We can return another time. What matters is that you understand our hearts. Caleb nodded gratefully. Relief washed over him, though it did little to calm his racing thoughts. Thank you, he said quietly. I need time. This is unexpected. Nalan bowed her head with respect. We will give you time. Dasana offered a soft smile, gentle, understanding, free of judgment. We trust your heart, she said. Whatever you decide. They picked up their baskets and prepared to leave. The riders mounted their horses again, and the sisters stepped back toward the group. As they turned away, Nalan glanced over her shoulder. You are not alone. Caleb Turner. Our people see you. We honor you. Then the group began their journey back toward the hills, leaving Caleb standing on his porch in the fading light. He watched them until they disappeared into the distance. Only when they were completely gone did he sit down slowly, elbows resting on his knees, hands covering his face. He had never felt so overwhelmed in his entire life. The request repeated in his mind over and over, not in a frightening way, but in a heavy, meaningful way. A request born from tradition, from respect, from trust, something he didn't know how to accept, but also didn't want to dismiss without understanding. The sky had turned deeper shades of purple. The first stars appeared, delicate and steady. He cared for the Apache community. He respected them deeply, but becoming part of their future in such a personal way, his shy heart trembled at the thought. How could he possibly answer something so big? He remained there long after night settled over the land, quietly searching for clarity in the cool, still air. But the only thing he knew for certain was that his life was no longer resting on the same path it had been just an hour before. Something had shifted, something he could not yet understand. And the hardest part was still ahead of him. Caleb woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling in his chest, as if the weight of yesterday's conversation had followed him into his dreams and refused to let him rest. The sunlight warmed his room, but even the bright morning could not ease the tight knot forming inside him. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long moment, rubbing his eyes and trying to slow his racing thoughts. Nothing in his quiet life had ever prepared him for a request so serious. Most days he dealt with simple things: feeding animals, fixing fences, repairing tools, or helping travelers who passed through. He had always believed that life could remain calm as long as he stayed respectful and honest. But now he felt as if he had stepped into a world where calmness was no longer enough. The Apache sisters' words echoed again and again in his mind. Their calm voices, their sincere expressions, their trust in him. It all made his heart ache in a strange way. A mixture of honor and fear. He wanted to understand the request fully, but he also felt overwhelmed by the responsibility carried within it. As Caleb stepped outside into the crisp morning air, he tried to busy himself with chores. He fed the horses and checked the water troughs, but his hands moved slower than usual. His thoughts drifted away every few minutes. Even his favorite horse, Belle, seemed to sense his unease. She nudged his shoulder gently, as if asking what troubled him. Caleb rested his forehead against her warm neck for a moment. "I wish you could tell me what to do," he whispered to her. Talking to animals always felt easier than speaking to people. Animals did not expect explanations, they simply listened. But the decision he faced was far too large for a quiet man to make without help. He felt caught between two worlds: his own beliefs and the traditions of the Apache community. He respected their ways deeply, but he did not understand everything. What was natural to them felt enormous to him. By midday, Caleb realized that trying to solve the problem alone would only lead him in circles. He needed to hear from someone who understood both his heart and the Apache traditions. Someone who could explain the meaning behind such a request. Someone patient enough to guide him. There was only one person he trusted for that kind of wisdom: Mangas, an older Apache man who visited the ranch from time to time. Mangas was known for his calm presence and thoughtful words. He had spoken to Caleb years before about the value of quiet spirits, and those words had stayed with Caleb ever since. Caleb saddled his horse and began the slow ride toward the Apache settlement, feeling his nerves twist with each passing mile. The land between his ranch and their community was open and peaceful. But today it felt like a long stretch of uncertainty. He rehearsed different questions in his head, but none felt right. When he arrived near the settlement, he dismounted and walked the last stretch on foot out of respect. Children played nearby, their laughter light and joyful. A few women worked on weaving baskets or preparing food. Everyone greeted him with warm smiles, unaware of the storm brewing inside him. One of the elders pointed toward a shaded area where Mangas often sat. Caleb thanked him quietly and walked over, feeling his heart beat harder with every step. Mangas sat on a flat stone, shaping a small piece of wood with a carving knife. He looked up as Caleb approached, and his eyes softened with recognition. "Caleb Turner," Mangas said kindly. "Your spirit looks troubled today." Caleb took a slow breath. "May I sit with you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," Mangas replied, gesturing to a place beside him. Caleb sat down, gripping his hands together to still their trembling. For a moment, he struggled to find the right words. Mangas waited patiently, giving him time, as if he knew the thoughts required gentle handling. Finally, Caleb spoke. "Yesterday, Nalan and Dasana came to me." He paused, searching Mangas's face for understanding. "They asked me for something I did not expect." Mangas nodded once, as if he had already sensed what Caleb was referring to. "They asked you to help bring new life to their families," he said softly. Caleb looked at him with surprise. "You know about it?" "Yes," Mangas answered. "They spoke with the elders before coming to you. Such decisions are not made alone." Caleb lowered his head. "I don't know what to do," he admitted. "I respect your people. I admire them, but I don't understand everything about your ways. And what they asked, it feels so important. I'm afraid of doing the wrong thing." Mangas smiled gently, the lines around his eyes softening. "Your fear comes from respect, not selfishness. That is a good beginning." Caleb let out a shaky breath. "Where I come from, this kind of request, it would mean something very different. It would mean a lifelong bond, a family built together. But they said it is different here." "It is different," Mangas agreed. "In our community, when many families suffer loss, we look for those with strong, gentle hearts to help our people continue. It is not about ownership. It is about generosity of spirit." Caleb listened carefully, letting the words sink in. "But why me?" he whispered. "I'm just a quiet rancher, not strong in the ways most people think of strength." Mangas chuckled softly. "Strength is not always loud. Many men speak boldly, but break easily. Quiet strength endures." He looked Caleb in the eyes. The sisters saw the way you treat the land, the animals, and the people around you. They saw a heart that protects, not harms. Caleb swallowed, feeling humbled and unsure all at once. I still don't know if I can do what they're asking. My heart is shy. And this decision is big, bigger than anything I've ever faced. That is true, Manga said with a thoughtful nod. But you do not have to make a quick choice. In our culture, decisions of the heart are made with patience. The sisters offered you respect by giving you time. Caleb sighed with relief. I don't want to disappoint them, he murmured. They came to me with trust. You will not disappoint them by being honest, Mangas assured him. Your answer, whatever it is, must match your own spirit. If you agree without understanding, your heart will be troubled. If you refuse without thinking, you will carry regret. Take time to learn, to reflect, to speak with them again. Caleb nodded slowly. The advice made sense. Mangas always had a way of bringing calm to confusion. After a long pause, Caleb asked, Do they expect me to be part of their lives afterward? Mangas shook his head. They expect respect, honesty, and kindness. But they do not expect your life to change in ways you are not ready for. He placed a hand gently on Caleb's shoulder. This request is not about claiming you. It is about trusting you. The tenderness in those words made Caleb's eyes sting with emotion. He looked away briefly, blinking the feeling back. I want to do what is right, he said quietly. You will. Mangas replied, because you care enough to ask these questions. The two men sat in silence for a while, watching the distant mountains. The sun had begun to lower in the sky, painting the land in warm golden colors. Caleb felt a small, gentle shift inside him, not a solution, but a step toward understanding. When he finally stood to leave, Mangas gave him one last piece of advice. Speak with the sisters again when your heart is ready. They will listen. They do not want fear to guide your choice. Caleb thanked him sincerely and began the slow ride home. The path felt a little less heavy, though not entirely clear. He knew the decision was still ahead of him, but now he felt less alone in facing it. As he approached his ranch, the sky turned soft shades of pink and lavender. The land felt peaceful again, but he knew his life had already changed in some quiet, important way. The days ahead would not be simple. But for the first time since the request, Caleb felt that maybe, just maybe, he could find an answer that honored both his own heart and the hearts of the people who had trusted him. The days that followed were slow, thoughtful days for Caleb. Even while he fed the horses, fixed fence posts, and tended to the cattle, his mind kept returning to the same questions. Every time he tried to focus on work, the memory of Nalin's steady eyes and Dasana's gentle voice came back to him. Their words carried a meaning he had never faced before. And the more he tried to ignore them, the louder they echoed in his thoughts. But something had changed after his talk with Mangas. The older man's wisdom gave him a new sense of calm. He still felt nervous, but not lost. When he remembered Mangas telling him that honesty would never disappoint the sisters, he felt a little lighter. It reminded him that he didn't need to be perfect, he only needed to be sincere. Even with that comfort, Caleb took his time. He didn't rush the decision. He spent evenings walking along the creek, letting the quiet water help him think. He sat on the porch at night, listening to the distant sounds of owls and coyotes, letting the stillness settle inside him. He remembered every moment he had shared with the Apache families, small moments of kindness, shared meals, peaceful visits. Those memories helped him understand that this request was not something random. It came from a place of respect. After nearly a week of reflection, Caleb finally felt something shift inside him. It wasn't clarity exactly. It was more like courage. A gentle kind of courage, the kind that grows slowly and carefully, like a plant beginning to push through soil. He knew it was time to speak with the sisters again. Early one morning, he saddled his horse and rode toward the Apache settlement. The sky was pale blue, and the rising sun painted the land with warm color. His heart beat quickly as he approached, but he kept going. Fear would not help him now, only honesty would. When he arrived, he dismounted and walked through the familiar paths. Children ran by, laughing, and several women offered friendly waves. A few men worked nearby, shaping wood or weaving rope. The peaceful activity made him feel slightly calmer. He asked gently if anyone knew where Nalan and Dasana were. One of the younger women smiled and pointed toward a shaded area near the river, where the sisters were washing and sorting woven blankets. Caleb thanked her and walked slowly in their direction. As he approached, Nalan looked up first. Her expression was unreadable at first, but then it softened into a polite, warm welcome. Dasana also looked up, her gentle smile appearing immediately. "You came," Dasana said softly, as if relieved. Caleb nodded, trying to steady his voice. "Yes," he replied. "I needed to talk with you." The sisters exchanged calm glances, then set aside their baskets. Nalan motioned for him to sit on a flat stone near them. He did, feeling the weight of the moment settle around him. The river's quiet flow made the silence feel peaceful, not frightening. For a long second, none of them spoke. Caleb cleared his throat softly. "I've been thinking about your request," he began. "I didn't want to answer before I understood what it really meant." Nalan nodded. "We hoped you would take the time to think carefully," she said. "This is not a small request." Dasana leaned forward slightly, her voice gentle. "Whatever you tell us, we will accept with respect." Their patience helped Caleb find his words. He took a slow breath. "I talked with Mangas," he said honestly. "He helped me understand your traditions better. And he helped me understand why you came to me." Nalan smiled, a soft, grateful smile. "Mangas has a wise heart." Caleb nodded. "He explained that your request wasn't about ownership or binding my life to yours the way it might mean in my culture. He told me it was about helping your community and honoring your people." The sisters listened closely, eyes full of calm attention. "I want you to know," Caleb continued, "that I am honored you trusted me enough to ask. Truly honored. Your words meant more to me than I can explain." Dasana's eyes warmed. "We trusted your spirit," she said quietly, "not just your actions." "We, Caleb swallowed, feeling emotion tighten gently inside him. "But there is something I must tell you honestly," he said. "I cannot give you what you asked for, not in the way you expected." The sisters remained still, listening without judgment. Caleb continued carefully, choosing each word with his heart. "In my world, bringing a child into life is something I connect deeply with: family, commitment, and being present every day. It's not something I can do lightly, and even though I understand your tradition better now, my heart still sees it in my own way." The sisters exchanged a slow, thoughtful glance. Their expressions did not show disappointment, only understanding. Caleb went on gently. "I don't want to say yes when my heart isn't ready, and I don't want to say no in a way that hurts you. I simply cannot take part in this tradition. It is not because I do not respect it. It is because my own heart is not made for something I cannot fully commit to." Dasana nodded softly. "Your honesty is kind," she said. But Caleb wasn't finished. He leaned forward slightly, his voice filled with sincerity. "Even though I cannot help in the way you asked, I want to help your community in another way, one that matches what I can give. I want to support your families with the things I can offer. More supplies, more livestock help, more tools, more time. Whatever I can do to help your people grow stronger, I will do it with all my heart." Nalan's eyes softened deeply, and she placed a gentle hand over her heart. Caleb Turner, she said quietly. You are a man of great respect. Dasana added. You did not hide. You did not run away. You listened. You learned. And you answered with truth. This means more to us than you know. Their acceptance surprised Caleb. He had worried for days that he would disappoint them or hurt their feelings. But instead, they seemed grateful, maybe even relieved. Nalan spoke again. Our people believe that the way someone responds to a difficult request reveals their true character. You answered with care. You honored our tradition, even when you could not follow it. That is a sign of a strong spirit. Caleb exhaled slowly, feeling tension leave him like a long, gentle sigh. Thank you, he whispered. Dasana smiled warmly. We are not sad, she assured him. We understand. We respect your heart. Nalan picked up one of the woven blankets beside her and folded it neatly. Your offer to help our community in other ways is a generous one, she said. Your gifts have always been welcome, but now they carry deeper meaning. Caleb nodded. I want to continue supporting you. Not out of guilt, but out of respect and friendship. And we accept your friendship, Dasana replied with kindness. That is something strong and lasting. The three of them sat together for a while, letting the breeze from the river cool the warm afternoon air. For the first time since the sisters had approached him, Caleb felt peace return to his chest, not the old quiet he had known before, but a new kind of peace, shaped by understanding and shared respect. Before he left, Nalan said something that stayed with him. You did not give us a child, she said gently, but you gave us your truth. And sometimes, truth builds more for the future than anything else. Caleb rode home with a lighter heart than he had carried in many days. The land looked brighter, the air felt clearer, and he understood something important now. He didn't need to be someone he wasn't. He only needed to be honest, kind, and willing to listen. And that was enough. The days after Caleb's conversation with Nalan and Dasana passed with a new and peaceful feeling. He felt lighter, as if he had been carrying a heavy stone in his chest, and had finally set it down. The decision he made had not been easy, but it had been honest, and honesty always gave him calm. Most importantly, the sisters had accepted his words with grace, which made him respect them even more. Still, something inside him had changed, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, steady way, like the land changing after a gentle rain. Caleb began to see the world with new eyes. He realized that his life was not as alone as he once believed. There were people around him, good people, who trusted him, valued him, and welcomed him into their world even when he felt shy and unsure. He wanted to honor that trust. The very next week, he loaded his wagon with items he thought would be useful to the Apache families. Extra tools he had fixed, bags of beans and flour, bundles of hay, and simple metal pieces he had shaped into cooking hooks and small blades for daily use. He also brought a few warm blankets he had repaired, knowing winter nights could be cold. As he drove toward their settlement, he felt a soft sense of purpose growing in his heart. Helping them felt right. It felt natural. He didn't feel pressured or obligated. He simply wanted to give back to a community that had treated him with such quiet dignity. When he arrived, several children ran toward him, smiling excitedly. They loved visitors, and Caleb's wagon always carried something interesting. Their bright faces made him laugh softly, a rare sound but a sincere one. He handed them a few apples he had brought and watched their joy with warm eyes. The adults soon gathered around. Some helped unload the wagon, thanking him warmly. Others asked how he had been. The entire settlement seemed to greet him not as a stranger or an outsider, but as someone they knew well, someone they trusted. Nalan approached him with her usual calm confidence, and Dasana followed with her gentle warmth. Both sisters carried peaceful smiles. You brought many things, Nalin observed. Caleb nodded, rubbing the back of his neck shyly. I thought they could help, he said simply. They will, Dasana replied. More than you know. The sisters invited him to stay for the afternoon meal, and though Caleb was nervous as always in social gatherings, he accepted. The community sat together under tall trees, sharing food and quiet conversation. Several people thanked Caleb personally for his kindness. He responded with soft words and small smiles, grateful but still humble. After the meal, a few of the men asked Caleb if he could show them better ways to repair a broken gate near the horses. Caleb agreed and spent several hours helping them reinforce it. He taught them how to use a certain knot to secure loose wood and how to shape a metal hinge so it moved more smoothly. The men listened closely, and Caleb found himself talking more than usual. He didn't feel the usual tightness in his chest when speaking. It surprised him, but he realized why these people made him feel welcome. They didn't judge him for speaking slowly or quietly. They didn't expect more words than he could give. They accepted him exactly as he was. Days turned into weeks, and Caleb visited the Apache community often. Sometimes he came with supplies, and other times he came simply because it felt right. He helped fix roofs, repair tools, and care for the horses. In return, they taught him small pieces of their language, showed him how they wove their baskets, and shared stories from their history. Nalin taught him how to choose strong reeds for weaving, and Dasana taught him how to grind certain herbs that helped calm the stomach. Their lessons were gentle and patient, and Caleb felt honored each time they included him. Slowly, Caleb became a part of their world not by force, not by obligation, but by kindness and trust. They didn't treat him like someone who had refused a request. They treated him like someone who had answered with integrity. And because of that, they welcomed him more deeply than ever. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with warm gold colors, Caleb walked along the creek with Mangus. The older man smiled as he watched children play nearby and families finish their evening chores. You have brought much good to our people, Mangus said. Caleb shook his head softly. I haven't done anything special. Mangus chuckled. You always say that. But you bring good by being yourself steady, thoughtful, honest. That is rare. Caleb lowered his gaze shyly, but Mangus placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Do you see how our people walk more peacefully these days? Do you see how the sisters smile when you arrive? Do you see how the men trust your advice? This is because you bring a calm spirit. Calm spirits strengthen communities. Caleb's chest warmed with emotion. He had never thought of himself as someone who brought anything meaningful to others. But hearing those words made him understand something new about himself, something he had never recognized before. He was useful. He mattered. He helped people, even without trying to be impressive. As the days continued, Caleb noticed a change in his ranch as well. The Apache came more often to trade, help with chores, or simply share quiet company. His land was no longer a place of complete solitude. Now it held footsteps, laughter, and shared tasks. His porch, once empty, now sometimes held woven baskets or freshly picked fruit as small gifts of appreciation. And Caleb, once so reserved, felt himself growing more open, still shy, still gentle, but more connected. One afternoon, Nalin and Dasana visited him while he was repairing a cattle pen. They approached with their usual calm grace. Your ranch looks stronger these days, Nalin said. Because of your help, Caleb replied. Dasana smiled softly. We helped each other, she said. That is how communities grow. For a moment, they all stood silently, watching the sun cast warm light across the land. Caleb felt something peaceful settle in his chest, a feeling that he belonged somewhere, that he had a place not just in his ranch, but in the hearts of the people he respected. Nalin spoke again, her voice thoughtful. When we came to you with our request, we hoped for strength. We found something else too. Tane. Caleb looked at her curiously. What did you find? A friend, she said simply. And someone we trust, Dasana added, her gentle eyes shining. Their words moved Caleb more deeply than he expected. He nodded slowly, touched beyond words. You both have been good friends to me too, he said softly. From that day on, Caleb's life continued to grow in ways he had never imagined. He had not created a child for the Apache community, but he had helped them build stability, safety, and connection. He supported their families through kindness and steady effort. And in return, they gave him something he had long lived, without a sense of family, even without blood ties. Caleb learned that sometimes a person's greatest impact does not come from grand actions. Sometimes it comes from gentle, honest choices made with a sincere heart. He had built a bridge between two worlds not by changing who he was, but by embracing who he had always been. And in doing so, he found a future brighter and kinder than anything he had ever expected.